Why would Tank agree to this? I mean, look at the graphic. Jake is 6'1", 199 pounds with a 6'4" wingspan. Tank, 5'5", 133 pounds, a 5'7" wingspan.
Tank Davis, they just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight.
Start like this. First of all, if you're a boxer and you're not taking note or notice of what Jake Paul is doing, you're worried about criticizing his boxing skills, then you're the fool.
Jake just too big.
Boxing fans are losing their minds over this Jake Paul versus Tank Davis fight. And honestly, can you blame them? Why would Tank agree to this? I mean, look at the graphic. Jake is 6'1", 199 pounds with a 6'4" wingspan. Tank, 5'5", 133 pounds, a 5'7" wingspan. Tank fighting me would be a fairer matchup. We're basically the same size. And you wonder why fans think Jake's fights are rigged? Because every time we see some nonsense like this, it feels like WWE with boxing gloves. Here's the kicker though. Jake threatened to sue anyone who calls his fights rigged. Yeah, you know, the same guy who preaches freedom of speech now wants to ban opinions. After that clown show with Mike Tyson that left everyone scratching their heads. Maybe, and I'm just throwing it out there, if your own management company wasn't promoting and sponsoring your fights, fans might actually believe what they're watching. Until then, don't be mad that people are skeptical. Be mad that your boxing career looks more like a scripted reality TV show.
Even though the exact terms of the fight remain unclear, no official contract weight, number of rounds, or confirmation of professional rules has been publicly released. This uncertainty has only deepened the debate. Many observers now see the event not as a traditional boxing contest, but as a crossover spectacle, an exhibition built for headlines more than heritage. And with that perception comes serious questions about fairness, safety, and the integrity of boxing's weight class system.
Tank is not the guy that knows how to sell a fight. Tank cannot sell a fight in his own division. You have the Paul brothers and they come over to boxing. Their idea from day one is we don't have the skills or the experience. What we're gonna do is we'll take on the absolute best guys, but they're gonna spot us some pounds. Tank has one job to do, that it doesn't make any difference, that boxing is a real sport. My skills versus your skills, of which I am an abundance of and of which you have none of. Tank is telling anybody that will listen that there's a size problem. My skills and my experience in boxing, I do not have to wonder who's in the bar tonight. Any bar I go to, I rule the bar. No, it turns out that you don't. Just need some big guy to corner you, apparently. Boxing has never stood its ground. Boxing has never been able to explain why Floyd needed a half hour to get rid of a guy who's never boxed before. Tank Davis has already began this. When you choose a dum-dum, don't be surprised when he goes out and acts like a dum-dum.
Terrence Crawford views the upcoming bout between Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis with clear skepticism, mainly because of the massive size disparity. To him, it feels less like a genuine sporting contest and more like a spectacle staged for attention, a sparring session masquerading as a fight. Crawford openly respects Davis's elite skill, speed, and knockout power, but he warns that if Jake's size and reach give him a clear physical edge, one clean shot could instantly shift the entire fight. Still, Crawford doubts the matchup will unfold under typical professional standards. In his view, the weight imbalance alone strips the fight of true legitimacy, making it hard to call this a clash between equals.
Jake Paul versus Tank Davis, they just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just too big. Tank ain't gonna be able to get in from that jab. Jake land one good punch on Tank, it's over.
Shakur Stevenson, himself undefeated and one of boxing's sharpest technicians, views the Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis matchup as an unfair test, especially for Davis. Stevenson points out that Paul's size advantage creates a physical mismatch that shouldn't even be on the table. Yet he has no doubt about who the superior boxer is. In Stevenson's eyes, Davis's ring IQ, precision, and composure would allow him to dominate with ease. He envisions Tank using movement, timing, and fundamentals, not raw power, to dismantle Paul round by round. Stevenson doesn't see Paul possessing the technical refinement to solve Davis's speed or footwork. And while he doesn't expect Tank to chase a knockout, he's confident the result would be a clear decision win. Still, Stevenson criticizes the entire concept of the fight, calling it a spectacle that disrespects the sport's balance. For him, the outcome is certain. Davis operates on a different level, and no amount of showmanship can change that.
He's here when you've got what is like a 70-pound difference between these two guys.
I mean, size will play some part of the fight, but if I'm thinking like I'm Tank, I'm probably just gonna go out there and try to outbox him and use my knowledge and IQ against him. So I can see Tank just outboxing him and making it real easy.
Is there any way you could, any realistic or legitimate way in your mind you could see Jake Paul winning a fight against Tank?
No.
No way.
Nope.
Not a lot of people have talked about Jake and say he's got good power. Not even and I get anything could technically happen, but you don't even see a realistic shot where he could land one big punch, and Tank being so much smaller, he just can't handle the power.
Nah, not at all. I think Tank is he's been boxing his whole life. He's been boxing since a kid, so I doubt like that's gonna be an issue or problem. I think Jake is good for where he's at, but I think it's just levels.
Tank and Jake fight.
Man, Tank disrespectful to the sport if he choose that over fighting with me. I'm the best fighter in the sport. I've been telling him that. And he called cap on it. So if you won't call cap and say I'm not who I say I am, come prove it. I think it's dangerous for him to go back in there and fight Lamont. I think Lamont is a hell of a fighter. I can see that going left. So he better be on his A game.
Daniel Cormier takes a more measured and nuanced view of the looming clash. He gives Jake Paul credit for having the courage to step in with a fighter of Gervonta Davis's caliber, acknowledging the risk and reward that come hand in hand with such a move. But Cormier doesn't shy away from calling out what most see clearly. The weight gap makes this contest difficult to justify under normal boxing standards. Still, he's quick to note that while Davis brings superior skill, pedigree, and experience, Paul's size advantage introduces a wild card that makes this matchup unpredictable. Cormier reflects on the stakes for both men. For Jake Paul, a loss could shatter his credibility in the boxing world. For Davis, losing to a much bigger opponent could tarnish his reputation despite his talent. Though Cormier avoids a bold prediction, he admits his instincts lean toward Tank Davis, believing that when pure boxing ability meets pressure, skill beats size most of the time.
I swear to God, I was on a plane coming home from Las Vegas. When Luis told me Gervonta Davis is fighting Jake Paul, I said, get the bleep out of here. I said, you're a bleep liar. Jake Paul is fighting Gervonta Tank Davis. There's one problem. He fights at 135 pounds. Gervonta Davis is that much better than Jake Paul at boxing. But Gervonta Davis in his last fight weighed 133.8 pounds. And I'm not over here in the business of just crapping on Jake Paul. I am much more respectful of what he's starting to build as a professional boxer. You're fighting a guy that's better than you. He's just much smaller. But that guy, because he's better than you, what if he wins? Everything Jake Paul has done is wiped completely out. Gervonta Davis loses to Jake Paul. Obviously, it's going to hurt who Gervonta Davis is. But he lost to a guy that's going to be upwards of 70 pounds bigger than him when he steps into the boxing ring. But I will tell you this right now, without a shadow of a doubt. I will watch this. Tank Davis is 30-0-1. You want to talk about Jake Paul fighting a real boxer? That's a real boxer. You can't make this stuff up, man. It's true.
Teofimo Lopez views the Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis showdown not as a fight for titles or legacy, but as a spectacle of modern boxing, a product of the era where entertainment and business often outweigh traditional merit. He's realistic about it, not cynical. For Lopez, there's no shame in two fighters chasing a massive payday and global attention. Prestige may be missing, but the value lies elsewhere. In visibility, in hype, and in the chance to bring new audiences into the sport. To him, even an exhibition-style matchup can play a role in keeping boxing relevant, proving that when personality, drama, and showmanship collide, the world still stops to watch.
And I'm actually very happy for Gervonta and Jake. I really am, man. It's good for the sport in some way, you know?
So a heavyweight versus a lightweight.
Yeah.
You got a fly hit me, yeah. A heavyweight versus a lightweight. How's this going to work?
hey, they make it work. It's an exhibition for a reason. So, you know, they know what they're doing. And, you know, shout out to Netflix and shout out to both of them, honestly. Like I said, I think a lot of people in the boxing world are kind of upset. I could care less. I think they're going to go out there and make their money. It falls on the number 8 for a reason. They're going to make a lot of money.
Have you got a prediction for that fight?
My prediction, a show.
Well, clearly it's a show, but when you've got a lot of people underestimating Jake Paul once again, but when you've got a heavyweight boxer who knows how to throw punches and knows the basics against a lightweight, it's quite a difference. I mean, have you sparred heavyweights before?
Yeah.
For competitive sparring in the ring?
Yeah, it's not the same. It's not the same, not at all. Definitely got to move. I've actually played around a few times, went through between their legs just to duck around. But yeah, because they're taller, you know. But I think for that competition, that fight, it reminds me a lot like The Big Show, and Floyd Mayweather when they fought in WrestleMania.
And will that end the same way?
Possibly. Maybe some brass knuckles in there too.
Can you see Jake Paul knocking out Gervonta Davis?
It's boxing, man. And if it's a show like this, anything goes, anything happens. You know, we expected Mike Tyson to do something, didn't go out that way. Jake Paul's training very hard, so, you know, kudos to both guys. I'm not going to...
Promoter Eddie Hearn echoed a similar sentiment, but took it a step further. He warned that the line between boxing and entertainment is being dangerously blurred. To him, a matchup between Gervonta Davis and Jake Paul isn't a true sporting contest. It's a business production dressed up as competition. Hearn points directly to the size gap as proof that this isn't about skill versus skill, but celebrity versus spectacle. From a purist's view, it troubles him deeply. Boxing, in his eyes, must remain a sport built on fairness, preparation, and merit, not viral moments or pay-per-view gimmicks. And yet the promoter in him can't ignore the reality. This fight would sell big. It would dominate headlines, break ticket records, and flood social media. Hearn admits with a mix of pride and frustration that while it may be a great business day, it also risks becoming a bad day for boxing's soul.
They told us that it was, you know, we were looking at that fight for February of next year, and they always said that there was a chance that Jake would fight in November. I think, wasn't I the one that broke Jake Paul against Gervonta Davis 6 months ago or something? I knew that they'd agree that deal. I didn't know they were about to announce it then, but I did know that they'd agreed that deal previously. So I don't like it, if I'm honest. I mean, I think we need to really differentiate between boxing and an entertainment concept, and that's what that is. It's a freak show. It's entertainment. It's a lightweight fighting a cruiserweight. You know, with, I don't know, is it bigger gloves and certain minutes per round? I don't know what it is, but, you know, I understand the market and I understand this freak show shock kind of the world mentality of people potentially tuning in. Is that a step too far? Maybe. I mean, I hated Jake Paul against Mike Tyson, but it did massive numbers. I hate Jake Paul against Gervonta Davis. It'll probably do massive numbers. So that's when you really have to differentiate yourself between, just because you don't like it doesn't mean it isn't going to do good business. Now, whether you want to be involved with it is another kettle of fish. I don't want to be involved with it, but I do respect the fact that it's going to do big numbers. It's just not boxing. And I don't think we should promote it as boxing.
In the meantime then, Eddie, where does that leave you with Anthony Joshua? Are you exploring other options for the end of this year, or are you still looking at that fight for the beginning?
Yeah, no, we're not interested in the Jake Paul fight right now. After that, I mean, like, you know, we're not going to wait around till November. Is it November or December, whenever it is?
Rolly Romero offers a more measured take on the Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis showdown, reminding fans that Tank's legacy is already secure, no matter the outcome. As a multi-division world champion with a resume built on grit and highlight reel victories, Davis has already earned a permanent place of respect in boxing. Romero acknowledges that Jake's size advantage is real, and that stepping up against a naturally bigger man presents a genuine challenge. But he's quick to stress that physical disparity doesn't erase legacy. Whether Davis wins or loses, the belts, the accomplishments, and the respect he's earned among fighters remain untouched. In Romero's eyes, Tank's name is already etched in the sport's history, far beyond the noise of any crossover spectacle.
But like, Jake Paul might be too big for him, or Tank might crack him. You don't know. like I said, like, or it's an exhibition. We don't know if they throw at each other or not, or we don't know. I don't know. I can't give an opinion because I don't know what's going on.
Do you think it impacts, like, will it impact Tank's legacy if Jake Paul were, like, to beat him or even, like, knock him out?
Dude, Tank's a 3-division world champion, 4-time 3-division world champion. At the end of it, bro, you can't take anything away from him.
Paulie Malignaggi draws a sharp line between experience and size. While Jake Paul has built fame and physical presence, Malignaggi reminds fans that boxing isn't won in the gym, it's won in the ring. Gervonta, Tank Davis has fought under bright lights, faced world-class opposition, and thrived under the highest pressure. No matter how big Jake Paul is, he can't replicate years of timing, rhythm, and instinct that come only through championship experience. Malignaggi's message is simple. In boxing, size fades, but skill endures. And when the bell rings, it's experience, not muscle, that separates contenders from pretenders.
Davis is more to lose because he's the bona fide world champion. I don't care if he's much smaller. I think Jake Paul has sort of plateaued as far as where his boxing is concerned. It's rather low level. Yeah. He's big, he's physical, he's strong, he can hit. So there is that risk. You know, Davis, you know, at lightweight, you're in a moment where it's too physical for you, you can clinch. Against the heavyweight, where you clinching? You ain't getting out of that corner just clinching anymore if you run out of space. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. But Davis, listen, there's a lot of talking points that I'm sure we'll get into when this gets closer to the fight. Davis can still punch at lightweight. Can he drop a heavyweight? You know, there's a lot to gain there, right? If Davis knocks,
the answer is yes.
If Davis drops Jake on his ass, as much as Davis is the one with more to lose, it's still a highlight moment.
A visual that will stay forever.
Yeah. But if you get dropped, even if you're smaller, you're still a world champion in multiple weight classes. If you get dropped, you know, what's the look? What's the feel? On the inside, as boxers, me and, you know, Chris Algieri, the champ, even you, Jimmy, you have fight experience. So we know that the risk is a big guy that big hits you, you're probably going down if you're a small guy, if he hits you clean. So we know the risk, but how does it look to the public eye who don't understand that? You know what I mean? The public. So there is a lot to lose, though. There's a bit to gain. I wouldn't necessarily have an issue with this had Davis's career arc been one that benefited boxing. Davis was manufactured and put into a position where he's supposed to benefit boxing, and I don't think he has. I think he's hurt boxing. So by giving him this reward, that's my problem. Why are we watching this? Why don't you make him earn his spot that he still hasn't earned, Mike?
What do you think will happen in Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis? Will skill overcome size, or will power rule the night? Drop your prediction in the comments below. We want to hear your take.